Okay, yay,
Oh,
yay. I got it. Okay, so hello today. Hello, everybody. Today is Wednesday, December the 20th. Oh my goodness gracious. Only 5 more days to
that's
Christmas.
right.
Oh, I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year. Um, so we are continuing in our study of A Course in Miracles. We are in let's see, we are in chapter 3, The Innocent Perception. We are in section 5, Beyond Perception, and we will be beginning in paragraph 2. So Harriet, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, I can. Hello, everybody. Before we get started, let us take a moment to settle down, taking a full, deep, cleansing breath. Surround ourselves with the white light of love and protection. Open our hearts and our minds to knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of this Course in Miracles. Guide us in using what we learn through the Course and living a better and more peaceful life. Treating our brothers and sisters as one, which we all are. And let us gain from today's session what it is we need to know at this particular point in time, applying it to our lives as we go about our daily business. And with that, I say, and so it is.
And so it is.
Okay, as has already been mentioned, we are in chapter 3, The Innocent Perception, section 5, Beyond Perception. And I will begin reading at paragraph 2. Since the separation, the words create and make have become confused. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. Oh, that's a new one. When you make something, when you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in separation. The ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. None of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. Whoa.
Well, we're going to be here for a minute.
Really? Since the separation of the words create and make have become confused.
So let's look up those words.
And I did, and now what did I do with it? Okay. Create, to make or bring into existence something new. To set up a scoring opportunity in basketball. Oh, that's interesting. What is a fancy word for create? Construct, craft, devised, edited, fabricated, launched, or shaped. When I think about create, what I think about is making or manifesting something where nothing existed before. Just my concept, my perception of the word create. And when you look at the word make, give me a second. That's interesting. I got something crazy. Let me go back and see.
Are these words from the Course in Miracles, or are they from the regular dictionary?
I'm looking at the regular, I'm Scott, excuse me. I'm looking at the regular dictionary right now.
Okay.
And form something by putting parts together or combining substances, construct. And it's interesting that part of that definition is the word create. Let's see what the Course in Miracles, and if they make any distinction between the two. Create. That's interesting. My glossary doesn't even have create in here. Do you have yours, Candy?
I can let me go get it.
If it's not convenient, that's okay. I'm just curious.
I probably do, but can I let me just pause, because it's gonna take me a minute.
Okay.
Well,
I don't have make either. My Course in Miracles doesn't have the word make either. Making, the unreal counterpart of creating, the process by which we produce illusions. And that's the definition for making, but they don't have make or create.
Okay, let's see. Mine doesn't say create, but it has creation and creations. So
Okay.
creation is the extension of God's being or spirit, the cause that resulted in his son, the effect. Described as the first coming of Christ, it is the son's function in heaven to create, as it was God's in creating him. Note, exists only at the level of knowledge and is not equivalent to creation or creativity as the terms are used in the world of perception. Well, that's completely different than what this little section right here is telling us. Let's see. Now, creations with an S, plural, the extensions of our spirit, the effects of our creating, analogous to the creation when God created his son by extending himself as extensions of Christ. Our creations are part of the second person of the Trinity. Creation is ongoing in heaven, beyond time and space, and independent of the son's lack of awareness of it in this world. Okay, that I don't know, that does not answer
our question. No,
our question like at all.
Y'all trying to figure out the difference between make and create?
Based through the Course in Miracles.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing here from this website this guy's talking about, which seems to jive, is that human beings make things out of necessity. So like to get paid, to solve a problem, something of that nature. But to create something is when it's done out of a love, like art, music, children, so that's the distinction that he states here, is that making is out of the necessity, which I think coincides with what this verse is saying. You make something out of a sense of lack or need, whereas creation is done out of love. So, so that's what I saw just from a couple of websites I just took a look at.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
right.
because I'm looking at in my
And
book,
that,
it says make, create, spirit creates while the ego makes. Knowledge, creation occurs
Mm-hmm.
only within the world of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
creating truth, perception, making, also referred to as miscreating, leads only to illusions, used rarely for the Holy Spirit, who is described as the maker of the real work. Okay, so.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
so that kind of, what do I want, how I want to put this? That kind of fits in with my perception um, of the two words.
Mhm.
Because you know, like I said, to me, to make is to take things and put them together to make something. And like Richard was saying, the definition, and basically all of the definitions that we've looked at
Have said
kind
the
of
same
says
thing.
to make something, it's a coming out of a need for something, for a need of some sort. And my concept of create is that something is manifested out of nothing.
Mhm.
It's that, I guess the best way to put it is energy becoming more dense.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, the other thing that I think about too is, you know, how interesting it is when we start parceling out what words mean, because we get so caught up in them being interchangeable, and it makes it difficult for us to see the distinction between things. That's why the Bible and scholars don't talk about God making man. He created man. It was out
Mhm.
of love.
Mhm,
It was out of these, you know,
mhm,
sorts of things. Whereas um we make things based against what our ego says we need.
mhm,
Fear and
mhm,
fear and love. Fear and
Yeah.
love. If it isn't,
mhm.
if it's out of love, it's a creation. If it's not out of love, then you're making something.
Mhm.
Right. That's how to feel.
Mhm. And right here
Fear
it
of.
says, since the separation, the words create and make have become confused. And when we are, you know, and we mostly live from our ego self. You know, it takes effort to live from our spiritual inner man, because we have to, you know, kind of like tear down everything that we have come to know
Mhm,
to open ourselves up to a new understanding of things.
Right.
And so yeah, so that, you know, that has caused some confusion, because you know we are basically making ideas or making words fit, or making concepts, you know, when we are, you know, when we're actually, when we're doing something from the ego perspective. And we begin to believe that as the real.
mhm,
Right.
Sentence 2 says, when you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. And you know, that's something that
mhm,
we have already talked about. We have already talked about, because when we you know, everything that has been made out of a sense of lack or a sense of need.
Right.
You know, cars,
yeah.
houses, clothes, all of
Mhm,
everything that we have made.
mhm. Clothes to hide our nakedness, cars to get us from point A to point B faster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Houses to keep the weather off of us
Mm-hmm.
or shelter us from the weather. A better way to put it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And do we really need all of those things. Our minds have said yes. Our ego has said yes. But if we are in the spirit, do we need all of those things? No. Because spirit doesn't need shelter, it doesn't need clothing, and it doesn't need food.
Yeah, but we have until we learn how to live in spirit, we do need
We
that.
gonna, we gotta feed the ego. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
you're absolutely right.
but just to mention that there's this man that, for the last 20 years, I've seen him, and he's been homeless ever since. Now, where he lives in the woods somewhere, I don't know where he lives, but for like 10, 15 years, he had on the same kind of like poncho shirt. And now when I saw him a couple of days ago, within the last couple of weeks, he had on a different shirt, he had on a hoodie type thing. But, so where does he live? I mean, who is he? I have never known, but he has been here in this area for, I know, at least 20 years. I've been seeing him for at least 20 years. So I guess, do we really need to live in a house? Because, I think he does just fine not living in a house. And, so all of these things, that we have trapped ourselves into believing, we might not necessarily, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but we might not necessarily support our ideas of what is necessary. Now, like I said, this is a single guy. I've been seeing him. I have not, he doesn't have children. I've only seen him, like for many, many years, walking down the road on his own. So he never needs transportation. He never, like I say, as far as I know, he lives in the woods somewhere. I've never seen him, like hanging out with a friend. He doesn't need companionship, and he looks the same. It's not like, he's,
You mean he doesn't age?
he looks like he looks the same like he did 20 years ago. You're not walking like a cane with a cane like me.
Wow.
All of the things that have been affecting me, it doesn't, I mean, he walks with the same gait. He he's always talked to himself. So, there's nothing weird about that when you see him talking to himself, because he's always done that. So, so I guess the question is, what, I mean, do we really need? Because like I said, until we get to this point where we don't believe that anymore, as an individual, I guess we can, and I guess I can't imagine that the police don't shake him down, because you know how the police are. I'm sure that they have, run him out from one place to another place before, and whether he is a multi-billionaire, because he could be, or whether he is just, always flat broke, but he just doesn't, his needs are different from mine. And that's one thing, when I saw him a couple of weeks ago, I said, that guy has always looked the same. Remarkable. So,
well, if he is as you have described him, he doesn't have any cares. He doesn't have any worries. He doesn't have anything to stress him out.
Mm,
And when you don't have stresses, you can be more relaxed. You say he talks to himself. You know,
mm.
for years I used to hear people say people that talk to themselves were crazy. But sometimes I think the most important, the most intelligent person you can talk to is yourself. So maybe people just avoid him because they think he's, not necessarily altogether upset. But at the same time,
Well,
he thinks he is.
he avoids people. So I can't say people avoid him. He avoids
okay.
people. Now, he eats,
Mhm.
obviously. He drinks water, obviously, he, all of the things, and like I said, he looks the same. So,
So
but
he probably has a secret that we should learn. What that is, I don't know. So don't ask.
yeah, but that's just the thing. Everybody in life has a different course
Perspective.
and a different path.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, he doesn't have children. I have children. Now, do I want my children living in the woods? I do not. Do I want my grandchildren living in the woods? Absolutely not. That's not a thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all it's all perspective.
Yep. Yep.
And this is what this is saying. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need.
And to me, the key words in that sentence is specific sense of lack or
Yeah.
need.
Uh-huh.
Those are the key words,
Uh-huh.
in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And each of us has a different sense of lack or need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I can't say the guy doesn't have any stress. I mean, I don't know him,
Right.
The couple of times when I have been in his company, well, not in his company, but he's been in my surroundings,
in your
I have
environment.
spoken to him, but he has never spoken back.
Okay. So in other words, if you say hello to him or greet him in some manner,
He ignores you.
He doesn't respond.
No, he ignores you.
Okay.
Like you're not there. So it's not like he's not responding. He's you're just maybe a ghost or something. I don't know. He ignores you. But does he do that with everybody? I don't know, because like I said, he does eat. So he might, maybe, does he go to the grocery store? Could be. I don't know. Does he just
maybe he dumpster dives?
He could just be simply hunting in the woods. I don't know. I don't know what the guy does.
Exactly.
So it's, but but it's very, it's amazing how in life, when what our choices are, Anybody want to read number 3?
Sure. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. Generalizability.
That's we looked at that one. We giggled on that one too.
Yeah. So, when I read that, thinking about what we were just talking about in terms of, this specific sense that, anything that we make, it's like, I don't have it. Let's say my finances are low or something. And so I make a plan to specifically address that. But the problem is that solution that I create, it's only for that specific purpose. It's not general. It's not broad. It doesn't necessarily address, that plan doesn't address a lot of things. It just addresses that financial void, that feeling of lack
Mm-hmm.
or need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything made for a specific purpose has no true
Generalizability.
Yeah. And when you think about that, especially using, Richard's analogy just then, is, if we are, now there was a time in my life when if I didn't have money, I would be freaking out. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to work? How is, staying up at night, worried about that. Now, okay, I'm not worried about that anymore. And I think that probably because, as a generalization, I understand that, okay, well, the lights are still, if even if my lights go off, I can get my lights back on. It's not the end of the world. Whereas at one point in time when I was younger, I did not understand that this is not the end of the world. And this is something that Hope and I were talking about the other day, is that, when at my mom's house, there wasn't no such thing as the lights. Lights never went out. The lights went out is everybody's lights went out. I remember people
It was a
saying,
thunderstorm.
or I remember people saying things like, when I, if I be hanging around with a bunch of people that say, oh yeah, I remember that good old welfare cheese. Never knew anything about welfare cheese. We always had an assortment of cheese. I always had, very thin cuts of meat. If we wanted to go on a vacation, we went. We're gonna go to we're gonna go to so and so. We're gonna go to the Grand Canyon, and that's what we did for the summer. We're gonna go up there. These are things that happened in my life, and so when I grew up, I did not know that your lights could go out. It was, it was Chicken Little. The sky is falling. How in the world did the lights go out? Nobody said that you got to keep paying bills. Why didn't you tell me you always got to keep paying bills? But now that I understand that now, and have had some experience and have had some generalization that, okay, so if I want to keep my lights on, if I want to keep the water on, if I want to keep this, then I have to have at least some money saved up enough so that, if there is an emergency, I got an emergency fund, or something, or whatever, so that is a, so I can have something that is for a specific purpose. Did I lose everybody?
Right. Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was trying to find a button.
Excuse me. What about you, Harriet, on this sentence?
Anything made for a specific purpose has no truth. I'm not sure, really, because you were talking about not having enough money, or not realizing that certain things can happen if you don't do your due diligence. Thank you. And I think as children, we do get that impression that everything is peaches and cream all the time. Depending on the environment of the home you grew up in. And I, like you, I just thought, hey, everything's always going to be peaches and cream. They're not going to be any stresses. And then, of course, once you get out And on your own, you realize you have responsibilities. And if those responsibilities are not taken care of, you're going to find yourself scrambling around for whatever. Could be food, it could be money to pay the light bill, it could be money. And when I was growing up, when I was a little child, a telephone was not even a necessity. It was a convenience, but not a necessity. Nowadays, it's a necessity. So you got to pay the telephone bill. So when we get to that age where we do have to be responsible for the way we live and do things, it's a whole different ballgame, really.
Mhm. Number 4, when you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly, is that right? Tacitly?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
You are
tacitly.
tacitly implying that you believe in separation. What does tacitly mean?
I'll look it up real quick, but I think it's more like subtle, you're
Okay.
subtly implying.
Okay.
But let me look. I'll double check. In a way that is understood or implied without being directly stated. So yeah, it's like
Mhm.
subtly.
Okay. Mhm. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in separation.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's an
yeah,
implication.
yeah,
You're saying it without saying it.
Right.
yeah. Because I mean, especially if all you know is separation.
Mhm.
Right.
And if that's how you have been taught all of your life, you believe it.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. So that is, and this is what the course is helping us to correct.
Mhm.
Is, that belief in separation, and separation is so deep. It has so many different levels, and I think this paragraph speaks on that. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, and a perceived lack can be anything. You need eggs from the grocery store.
Right.
That's a perceived lack.
Mhm.
You need soap. That's a perceived lack.
Mhm.
And it is difficult to get to the understanding that what is an actual need and what is not.
Right.
And
Mm.
I was just thinking, when I was young, we were told in school, and by people that we looked up to, that we only needed 3 things: food, clothing, and shelter. But now that I am older, I'm coming to realize that in order to exist in this body, the only thing I really need is air and water. Because you can't go very long without taking in air. You can go a little bit longer not taking in water, but you can go a long time without taking in food and still be alive. I mean, this body can still be alive. So even then, but if we want to live healthy, then yeah, we need food. If we want to be comfortable, and of course, comfort is how do I want to put it? Comfort is all in perception.
Mhm.
I lived in Pennsylvania for a number of years, and being from the South, it took me a while to get acclimated to the cold weather in Pennsylvania. I worked with a young man. He and his wife lived, I think it was about 20 blocks away from our employer. And he and his wife would walk to work every day. And I'm bundled up in down jackets or coats or whatever to be warm. And they're out there with what we would put on here in the South during the cooler days of autumn or spring. So what I'm trying to say is it all depends on what you have been acclimated to as far as needs in covering our nakedness or being comfortable.
But isn't that a isn't that like a perceived lack? You know, when you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in separation. And I think that, you know, all of us believe in separation. It has been something that we have been taught and we have trusted in. We have seen it work. We have seen the results of it. We have seen the benefits of it. So it is a challenge not to believe in separation. So you know, so it is a different thing to when you really make a decision of what your perception of lack is.
Yes.
And you know, you just brought to mind something that I often tell myself. I see something that will make it easier for me to do certain things, perform certain tasks. And I might not have enough money to purchase it outright at the moment. So I usually satisfy myself by saying, I've done without it for this long. I can do without it for a little while longer while I save, you know, while I accumulate the money that I need in order to purchase it. And sometimes when I do finally get enough money to purchase whatever it is that I feel like I needed, I just have get the feeling, I don't need that. I can spend this money on something else that I want or need.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, but it is a challenge to overcome that sense of separation.
Exactly.
And it is a challenge to not to perceive lack.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like how you said that too. You said it's a challenge. You didn't say it was hard. You said it was a challenge.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I was just talking with someone recently about, I kept saying, "Oh, Richard, it's just so hard." I was like, "Well, if that's what you believe, then yeah, you're right." She's like, "Well, it is hard." I said, "I mean, hard is subjective."
Yeah.
And hard is also, the words that keep coming to me is be careful of what you believe about what you're capable of doing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so I like the idea of it being a challenge rather than it being hard. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I appreciate that because I was really trying to find a new word for her.
Yeah, because and it really is like, you know, it's really like an onion. You know,
Right.
as soon as you accomplish one level of it, then here's a whole nother layer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Number 5. I mean, do y'all want to move on or?
Oh, I'm good to move on. I'm ready.
Yeah.
The ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. And yeah, and this is what we know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because just going back to the guy again, when I first started noticing him, and I say 20 years ago, but that was just it had to have been before then, because I had to been in my 20s when I first started noticing him, my late 20s. So it had to have been like 40 years ago, and I was just remembering, because then we were just starting to hear about homeless people. It was not a concept. I mean, we were always told that they were called hobos or bums, people like that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but they were people to be afraid of, so if you saw someone homeless, it was an odd concept, because what did that mean? How did he become homeless? So it was, I just remember that people used to try to give him money, and he tried to stay away from everybody, and he didn't bother you, so he wasn't scary. So all of those things that we were our egos were told that you have to be afraid of people like this. Now, on the other hand, we have more and more concepts of people who are being homeless. Dan Rather is talking about homelessness. Oprah, all of these people that we see and trust on our television shows, they're telling us about the homeless, and let's help the homeless across America, and all of these things like that, where now our ego has shifted from the hobo that's trying to jump the train tracks with the with the red bandana and the stick, from the and so that person is no longer a scary person. Now this person is down on their luck or something else, or has been a concept of him, or right after this, he could possibly have been a Vietnam vet. All of these stories that were circulating around the why, all of these stories that were circulating around, was the why that this has happened. And so now, so that in itself is saying, okay, well, this happened to him, does this mean that it could happen to me? So this is causing me fear, but I'm not afraid of him as a hobo. I'm afraid that it could be me. I'm not afraid that he can hurt me, because he has never spoken to anybody. So he was not trying to do anything to anybody. So he was not a bad guy, but he still generated a sense of fear. And when it says the ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. So now not only were we afraid of him, we were afraid that we could be like him. And like I said, when I saw him the other day, I said, this guy, the only thing different about him is that he has on a different shirt. That's the only thing different about him. He looks exactly the same. He's walking the same. He's doing everything the same. He never had a whole bunch of stuff with him. So, but he's, everything about him is the same. So now that I'm seeing this, it's not as can't say it's not as fearful because, you know, I can't imagine, me personally, I can't imagine having to live in the woods, you know. You know, I could if I had to, but you know, I would rather not. So, you know, when I'm thinking of this, so now my ego is still finding ingenious ways for me to stay on this level of separation. And although, you know, although I know about Course in Miracles and know all of the stuff, it's all in that logic place, but I don't have it centered in yet.
And like you said, it's a challenge uh, um, to live this way. But speaking of your guy, your homeless guy, he perhaps chose that lifestyle for himself. I think, you know, some people, I've heard heard stories where people that are homeless, uh, some do-gooder in society decides, okay, I'm gonna make it easier for him. I'm gonna put them up in, you know, this rooming house or boarding house or wherever, so that they will at least be out of the weather. And that individual, okay, might try it for a night or two and decide, no, I can't deal with this, and goes right back to living on the streets or in the woods or wherever it is he chooses to live or she chooses to live. And some people, when you hear these stories like this, you get the distinct impression from the way they react to the person that's trying to make it better for them or make it more comfortable for them. They are very resistant. They will either say, leave me alone, or by their actions, they're telling you to leave them alone. Let me be who I want to be. They're being true to themselves. But our concept of what is good for them and what their concept of what is good for them are worlds apart. And with some people, they choose that way. With others, it's circumstance that has put them in that position, and they are working, trying to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I do think that, you know, what are your thoughts, Richard, on number
Um,
5?
I think number 5 is for me, you know, aside from the separation of create and make, number 5 is the hitter for me. I like this one. Um, because it speaks directly to the root of the issue in terms of the ego, and not just the fact that the ego talks, but it's also that we listen to it, that we believe
Mhm.
it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so we get into this belief of the things that we've incorporated to deal with harm. You know, all of these thoughts, these thought systems, you know, a lot of these things were just created to protect the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so then we create them to, I'm sorry, we make them, yeah, I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
make them to uh establish this false sense of security. Um, and it's what I was trying to do is wrap it up into like how it's a cycle. You know, that
Yeah.
something happens, then we believe that we have to protect ourselves or do things a certain way, and then we go into life with that thought process, and so then we hear other people's circumstances and situations that fit ours, so it justifies why we keep rolling around in this cycle. So I really like this verse. I mean, it really talks about what I would say is the root issue.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm,
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
And a lot of times I mean, most of the time we are indoctrinated into this,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
you know? Yeah, I mean, you're not like I tell people all the time, all of this whole idea that you have to bury somebody, that somebody has to be buried and they have to be embalmed in the, in this steel um casket thing that and the truth is,
Mhm.
it's against the law to leave you topside. So, but we go into so much debt. We go into so much debt down behind, and but there's a whole system of thought around it. I remember when my when my father had just passed, and the funeral director, they were telling me, they were doing their thing because that's their job, and they were saying, give me all of these ideas with caskets, and oh no, we don't need any of that, I'm going to cremate him because that's the thing that he wanted to do. He wanted to be cremated,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to put no money into it. I'm not going, the cheapest. Give me the cheapest. And it was they were so shocked that I used the word cheapest, and that whole concept of like I said, my father was a Catholic, and I had asked the Catholic priest would he come and do the service, and they had some kind of stuff that they wanted to make sure that he was put in their mausoleum. I said, no, he gonna sit on my glass cabinet. That's what he gonna do. He gonna sit on my glass cabinet. And the priest was telling me how he was, don't condemn your father to hell like that. Okay, all right, wow. We have, this is a completely different thing. I mean, so that was his projection of his fear, thinking that, because I'm gonna have my daddy sit on my glass cabinet, that now he's gonna be cast into hell, you know, because he's not gonna be in your mausoleum. Wow. But it's the concepts that each of us buy into. And this is why this thing is so
Mhm.
is, this 5 sentence is the ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. You're not allowed to not have electricity in your home. You're not allowed you're not allowed not to have running water in your home. I mean, there are so many things that the society has made for us, and I'm glad, Richard, that you had said stop from saying created into made, because they have made these things that we have to rely on. So now we are more and more trapped into this whole cycle of fear, and the ego itself trusts more completely in the fear of something that they have made, instead of something that is it even goes against their own rule. So yeah, this is a really, really good sentence here.
What I was thinking of, or what thought crossed my mind as you were talking, Penelope, is I lived in Pennsylvania, in Dutch, what they call Dutch country up there. They're actually Germans, but those individuals, they call them Amish, and they don't believe in motorized vehicles. They don't adhere to electricity or the conveniences that we adhere to. And they seem to get along very well. They have large families, they live on farms, they work the land, and that is their source of income and food. Now, those that have large herds of cattle, they have to make some compromises in order to meet certain health standards in order to sell their milk to the dairy processors. But they try to live as simply as possible. And they seem to enjoy it. Of course, there are, and I'm not sure whether this was part of a documentary that I saw or part of a fictionalized story, but it seems as though young people, I guess in their late teens, early 20s, they are allowed to experience the world as such. And some of them, they're ready to go back home to that simpler lifestyle that they had, well, let's say take a hiatus from in this worldly experience. And then there were those that kind of liked the worldly lifestyle and they chose not to return home. But I think it's all in what you become used to, the personality of the person themselves, because there are some that are fearful of being away from the creature comforts of home. And when I say creature comforts of home, whatever love and comfort that you felt in the home that you grew up in, whether it was one with all the conveniences, modern conveniences of today's society, or whether it's the simplistic way of living where you don't have all of those modern conveniences as such. But it's what you feel most comfortable with. And I think a lot of times it might also depend on the personality of a person. If you're a shy type, then you don't want to be bothered with a whole lot of people around. I remember when I was working for the electric company, there was a young man, an engineer in the department that I worked in. The passageways between the desk or the cubicles where we all sat in were very narrow. And I noticed that whenever it was a situation where he and I were in the passageway at the same time, and we were going in opposite directions, and we would eventually meet, I noticed that he would always drop his head. And I said something to one of the supervising engineers one day that I used to have lunch with frequently. And I said something to him about this behavior of this young man, dropping his head when he'd see me. And the engineer who knew him said, well, he's shy. And to me, my attitude towards him and the way I viewed him changed immediately, because I thought that he was avoiding me because he didn't want to be bothered with Black folks. And when the engineer told me that he was a shy individual, the next time that I had that incident of having to meet him as we were going through the passageways, I said hello. And from then on, he never dropped his head when he saw me. He would look straight ahead, and he would, speak when he came to me. Sometimes he would even speak first. So it all depends on the nature of the personality as well as what we feel comfortable with. And we can be easily influenced, like you said, by what are they called? The ego and the thought systems that it creates.
Let's see. We can do 6 and 7, I think. Let's see. 6 is none of them is creative. Well, let's talk about that just for itself for a second, because we have talked about things that we have made. So now when we're looking at none of them is creative, none of the things that we make, we and just to, just to realize, just like when Richard had said, these words are not interchangeable. So, when we're thinking of like Richard, when he first just read his definition, is that music is creative, art is creative. I guess, those are the things that, come out of our mind, and then and then they're manifested into something that is based out of love. I'm not gonna say that, I guess some, so some of the things that so let me ask this question. Is it can we ever make something out of love? Is that absolutely impossible?
I don't think so, but I think the the question is, can love and ego coexist at the same time?
I think if it's a battle, love is going to win.
Right, but what I'm suggesting is that, like, if we believe that I can be in my ego and still love someone, then yeah, I think that's you're still making something because the ego is still involved. But when you're doing something out of love and is devoid of the ego, then it's creation. So I think to be more specific, I think the answer to your question depends on if we believe that you can love and be in your ego at the same time.
Yeah, because some things that, because everything is not everything that we make is not always out of a sense of fear. In my opinion, not everything, or everything that any time that we always can see a perceived lack, it's not always out of fear. Not necessarily. If I am hungry, I am perceiving lack, but in the meantime, I love myself. I love my body enough to feed it. If my children are hungry, I'm not gonna not say to them that, you're not really hungry. You just think that you're hungry, so we do give them things out of love. I mean, some, like if I know if my grandson, he loves all things white, white rice, bread, French fries, chicken, just the white meat of the chicken. So I will go out of my way to make him a plate of white food, so that he can eat and be happy. So, I guess, so yes, so, it's, so yeah, Richard, I think that the ego and love can exist at a certain level. And I guess that part has to do with perception. I am perceiving, the love that I have for myself or my grandchildren, to make sure that they are healthy and happy, based on the best that I can do to bridge a lack, or to get rid of a lack.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, as you were giving it, yeah, as you was giving an example, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm I'm making I'm making decisions and balancing the ego and love all at the same time. And I think I would still consider those as me making rather than creating.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to then my mind quickly went to maybe the real issue for me right now is creating this hierarchy between create and make,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Say
That
Yeah.
that again.
creating a
Say that
hierarchy.
again.
I said my mind started to realize that I was creating a hierarchy about
Oh, okay.
create and make. That create is higher and make is lower. And I was like, wait a minute, that now I'm getting into the good and bad, the saying the light, like it is what it is. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just in this moment now, as I'm processing it, I'm thinking about how just understanding the differences now will help me rethink what I think is important in all of this, and the word isn't mentioned here, which is intent.
Mm-hmm.
The intentions behind, you know, why we feed the kids. Well, I love the kids and I love me, and this is what we do. We eat, right?
Yeah.
But at a certain point, if the money ain't right, even if the money is right, there's a certain level of ego that's involved in,
Yeah.
saying that daddy always take care of us,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
so I'm making, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think consciousness, this sort of awareness, at least for me, just really drives home what something that I have been thinking about, and that is my motives, my intentions.
Mhm.
Why did I say that?
Yeah.
Let me inspect that a little bit. And so I think it's a good analysis tool,
Yeah.
knowing these definitions.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. Um, Harry, you about to say something?
No,
Oh, okay. You want to read number 7?
inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form. What? Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form? I don't know why, but I don't agree with that.
Okay, so take you back to verse 5, where it
Okay.
said
Mm-hmm.
the ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. The inventiveness is referring back to that invention of the
Oh, okay.
ingenious thoughts.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Mm-hmm.
that thought process, we find out in the next verse in 6 that they aren't creative. They may be ingenuous, but they're not creative. And this invention, is wasted effort, even in the most ingenuous form.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's ingenuous, it's still wasted effort
Mm-hmm.
because
Okay.
it's still
Okay.
grounded in this root idea of separation.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
Well,
that's the challenge, right?
yeah.
That's the challenge because we are it's like two steps forward and one step back. I mean, that same old foxtrot. You're doing the you are believing the new. Well, I don't even want to say call it new, the real, but then yet we are still caught in the web of the ego.
Yes,
So so
I agree.
inventiveness is wasted effort, even in this most ingenious form. So I'm doing my best, thinking that I am living my thinking that I am living my best life.
Mhm.
Yet all the time, I'm still inventing or making something as opposed to in just living in pure creativeness.
Yeah. I feel like we were on two trains and we were like coming to the same spot at the same time. Like, yes, because what I was thinking just now as you were kind of rounding that out is it's 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 so amazing to hear how they refer to it's ingenuous thought systems.
Yeah,
Like ingenuous is creative. I mean, not
yeah.
creative, but it's inventive. It's what's the word I just saw? It's clever. It's original.
Hmm.
It. We kind of pride ourselves on meeting a challenge and figuring out a solution.
Yes.
Right? We created that, and that builds on our ego. And as long as I, even to the point where like, as long as I remain calm, I can get through it all. But it's not creative because you're still
Yeah.
working within that thought. And so
Yeah.
to say that you can be inventive, you can be an inventor, you
Hmm.
can be a creator,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean that it's creative.
Yes.
You can be a creator, but it doesn't mean it is creative, especially if you're in this space of separation. Yes, yes, yes. I love it. Thank you.
Okay, number 8. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creation. Wow. Is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations.
Mm. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so how do we invent then?
um, well, I, I keep thinking that the word that we want to move away from is invent and move closer towards create. And because invent still kind of makes me feel like we're going back into the um
Mm-hmm. Back into the separation.
ingenious. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so I think, what I'm seeing out of this is that, in understanding this nature of this invention, this making,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that we're putting it together on this basis of separation to
Yeah.
solve a specific problem
Mm-hmm.
that feeds our ego.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worthy of the
Mm-hmm.
abundance of creativity that flows in God's creations.
Yes, because that's how we create. When we think of Jesus and the 5 loaves and the 2 fish,
Mm-hmm.
that was creation.
Mm-hmm.
He did not have to invent anything. And that's why it looked like a miracle, because he stepped over that whole inventive part.
Mm-hmm.
He stepped past separation and only use pure creation. And that's what you're saying, Richard, is when we get out of that sensation of ego, separation, perception into pure creativity, then we are understanding that that's how we um, form something from out of nothing.
Right. And that's also how we find ourselves in a position where we're in service of others because
Yeah.
of love, not because of the love that we would receive or
Yeah.
the feeling that it causes us to have, that it is purely out of love.
It's
I mean,
purely out of love.
that's it. Yep.
Yes. Yes. Because that's the reason that Jesus fed everybody,
Right.
was out of love. Not out
Yeah.
of, okay, look how fantastic I am. Hey, watch this,
Right.
y'all.
Let me show you. Let me show y'all how God. It's not even let me show you how good God is. It's
Right,
not even
right.
that. And that's the
It's not
that's the thing that gets me now because and I got goosebumps because that's what you hear. I hear that
that's
so
what you
much.
hear all the time. Yes. Let me tell you about how good God is, y'all. I've said it myself.
I have to.
Mhm.
Mm.
Wow.
And not knowing all the while where that was coming from.
Ego.
Mhm.
The ego has invented
Mm.
many ingenious thought systems for this purpose.
That's it.
What a rabbit hole.
Mhm.
This is I'll do my wrap up now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do that.
This is this was calling me today and I appreciate and I'm so glad that I signed on because this is just a powerful nugget here. I spend a lot
Mhm.
of time processing and thinking about, you know, my motivations, my intentions, you know, what is it that I need to get out of it? And I'm living in a society that is always talking about reciprocity, reciprocity, reciprocity.
Mhm.
You got to
Mhm.
protect yourself and you got to have
Mhm.
boundaries and all of these sorts of things that are may have good intentions, but they're rooted in an unhealthy ego.
Right.
And so,
Mhm.
Mhm.
understanding that love, when you are in the act of creating and you're acting out of love, people aren't going to understand it. People don't even understand how we are created. Um, and so that this lesson has been phenomenal for me in terms of just kind of being clear difference between create and make, at least in my own mind. The rest of the world, you know, outside of the course will think differently. Um, but then also being mindful that it is the love that makes things worthy of God's creations. Like I
Yes.
want to say it like that. But if it's done through love, I'm on the right path. Period. Sorry to go on.
No, that was perfect. Thank you. How about you, Harriet? What did you get from today's lesson and how can you apply it to your life?
Well, my takeaway for today is um, being conscious of the difference between create and make.
Mm.
And to me, it's something that I will have to, moving forward, will have to keep in mind. There is a difference, a big difference between the two. As Richard and you both said, we create out of love. We make out of necessity, and necessity is usually driven by the ego.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I need to keep in mind moving forward.
Excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, I think the same thing for me too. I think uh the the words create and make are not interchangeable like I have
Mhm.
often thought of in my mind.
Mhm.
That whole idea of that the ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. Um, and that is the challenging part that sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's a lot of fun to try to figure out the puzzle of it and or to untie the knot. And sometimes it just all nothing but bad words, you know? But also I'm understanding more and more how I have invested in that sense of separation. I have invented it and I have taught it. I have learned it. I have um, planted seeds in it. And now I am investing in um, the seeds of love so that I can live a more focused life, understanding, learning, and sharing love. So yeah, so this is a really great session for tonight. So thank you all so much for sharing and for coming in, and you know, let's just break down these words and figure out what it means. And I love it that we take our time. Okay, so now tomorrow we will not be doing I am in the morning. Forrest has a doctor's appointment, so we won't be able to do that. But we will be we will do the flight, correct, Harriet, tomorrow evening from 7 to 8:30. Okay.
Yep.
Excuse me, y'all. We'll be doing flight from 7 to 8:30 tomorrow. And we won't be back until will we be back for next Wednesday? Are we gonna be back next? You want to try to do Course in Miracles next Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll be available.
yeah, let's do it next
Okay.
Wednesday. Let's
Yeah.
do Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
from 5 to 6:30, Course in Miracles. We can finish up flight too, probably from 7 to 8:30. And then, you know, and like I said, we all just kind of stick our head in on Saturday, on the, you know, Saturday, which is the day before New Year's Eve, and just to say, hey, hi everybody, and just to,
Cool.
you know, kind of have an opportunity just to share a smile and to laugh and just to have you know, just to say hello
And wish everybody a
happy new year.
wonderful 2020. Yeah.
2024. Well, that's it for this evening,
Wow.
everybody. Thank you so much. And and would anyone like to close us out in prayer?
Harriet,
No.
would you mind? Thank you.
No. Who, me?
I was saying Harriet.
Oh, Harriet. Yeah, go ahead.
I asked her if she didn't mind.
Well, she started us off in prayer today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I can close us out.
Okay, thank you.
So let's just settle back for a second. Taking a couple of deep cleansing breaths. Allowing ourselves to be stable, to be firm, be rooted in a higher consciousness. There is this place where there is only source, and source is all that there is. Source lives in each and every one of us, as us, and we operate through that source, through this personality, through this ego sense, through the joy that we share with source. And as we allow our wholeness to become whole, our minds, our bodies, and our spirits to be unionized, to be unified in wholeness and oneness in source, so that when we look at each other, when we look at ourselves, all we see is source. All we recognize is source. All we speak of as source. And all we realize is source. And through this union, we are so thankful and so grateful for all the things that we have, all the things that are available to us, and all of the things that we are capable of sharing. And with this, we say, we know that there is only love, that the love that we share, that the love that we experience and realize this is our truth. This is the one thing that we have that is available at all areas and brings us the everlasting light and wholeness of truth. And as we release this light of the wholeness of this love into the universe, into our hearts, into our minds, into our fellow man, into our truth, into this world, this planet itself, into all of the things that there is, we allow this truth, this love, this light, this wholeness, this peace to be united. And with that, we say, and so it is.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you.
All
Hey,
right, everybody.
quick-
We love you.
Love you too. Quick question. Have y'all
Uh-huh.
ever used a grounding pad before?
A grounding pad?
Yeah.
No. What is
It's
that?
like it's like a pad, and it actually
Mhm.
connects to the grounding wire in the outlet.
Mhm.
And supposedly it does this amazing job of, getting you grounded, like if you were to walk outside, barefooted. So I got one on the
Hmm.
way. I'll let y'all know how it is.
Yeah, let me know.
I
Let me
saw
know.
I saw
What does it look like?
it looks like, I mean, it looks like a black pad that that you can sit on, or
Mhm.
like it's like a long mouse pad. That's, I mean,
Mm.
wider and thicker. But
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm gonna have it. I'm having one come tonight. So I'll let you know. I've seen them in bed sheets
Mhm.
that do that.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Pads on the bed. I've seen armbands that you can put on your wrists and
Mm.
Mhm.
connect. So it's something to look into. But I'll let y'all know next week how it goes.
Yeah, let me
Okay.
know. That sounds fantastic. And you know what?
Yeah,
I
it
haven't looked
does.
at my email. Did you send me a thing already?
Oh no, I haven't. I gotta get you because you gave me you asked for a date to present, correct?
Oh, well, actually, I wanted to know. I know you said you were starting your
Oh, the Sea Bears.
yeah, the
Yes,
Sea Bear sessions.
yes, I was gonna do it on the 28th, but then I said I think it was Spirit that was telling me no, don't
Mhm.
worry about doing it before the holidays.
Right,
Do it
right, right.
afterwards. Let people get through all their stuff. So I'm looking at the second. I think it's the second Monday. I'll get you the email though. You're on the
Okay.
list.
All righty. That sounds good.
All
All
righty.
righty then. All right
All
then,
right.
everybody. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.